Before we start this episode, we want to do a quick disclaimer. This is a mental health podcast and we are not professionals. These are our opinions and personal experiences on mental health. That being said, we do discuss sensitive subjects.
This is our official trigger warning for our episodes. We are a mental health podcast, and we did want to give a trigger warning to any viewers or listeners that may be sensitive to any topics we might bring up. We do not hold back on the podcast. We will be discussing every corner and in and out, the dark and light sides of mental health, mental illness, and those struggles. So thank you for tuning in. This is your final trigger warning.
Hi, Gems. Thank you so much for tuning into the next episode of the Rock Bottom Podcast. Episode 10.
Episode 10.
Yes. If you haven't checked out last week's episode, we did interview Justin Castillo. He's the director of The Last Order.
That was a lot of fun.
It was.
It's our very first interview pod. If you did see it, thank you for checking it out. If you haven't seen it, go check it out now. It was very fun. Justin was awesome. He had a great take on how the art connected to mental health, and he really surprised me with his answer about how he takes his life struggles and works them out through horror films. It was really crazy what he had to say about that. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't realize the fact that when he did say that he had to dive into the irrational to get to the rational.
That was crazy.
That was crazy.
I think that was my favorite part of the episode.
Yeah, I know.
Everything he said. Go check it out. We won't spoil anymore.
No more spoilers. I'm so sorry. But just the fact that he was very open with his mental health, I thought was very key and I think very admirable. Not a lot of people can do that, especially when it comes to art and directing. And I appreciate him being on the pod for sure.
For sure. He's a lot of fun to be around. We plan on doing more interview pods, so stay tuned.
Yes, absolutely. So we had a whole episode planned out for today.
Yeah, a whole topic we wanted to do and everything.
Yes. But we kind of scrapped that idea. I think we both realized we wanted to come on here and just be raw and honest on our mental health and where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And I think that spoke more volumes than scripting out an episode.
Yeah, we had an idea with where we wanted to take episode 10, but we literally just scrapped it last minute right before recording because I barely made it on the pod today. I feel exhausted and overwhelmed with a lot of things I'm going through and facing right now, and I think we just thought that coming on the pod and being raw and honest and real with our listeners, with our gems, would just be a lot more authentic and exactly on brand for us anyway, and just all around realer. I think at least me personally, was a little scared or timid about discussing certain things on the pod because I'm I don't really know if I want people to know me that well, and I don't know if I want to open up about that. I'm still going through it right now. I don't even know why would I talk about that, but the more we talked about it, episode 10, the more I realized that we need to just be honest with our listeners,
be raw and transparent
about where we're at. So we don't really know where this episode's going to go today, but we just want to see where it goes. We want to just talk about our mental health and where we're at currently and what we're dealing with and how we're handling it. And
real world problems that we're experiencing at this moment.
Yeah.
I think that'll give a little bit more insight to who we are as people and our emotions and how valid we are to be exploring our own mental health.
Yeah. Instead of trying to distract ourselves with a different topic we think listeners might want to hear, I think listeners just want to hear honesty and rawness.
Yeah.
We discussed even taking a break this week because I just feel exhausted, overwhelmed with, it's not really the podcast, it's just life. I feel pressured in so many different areas right now to get things done, to be this way, to change, to do this and do that. And I guess just to dive right in, something I'm struggling with right now a lot is I feel like I've hit a wall in my healing journey where at first when I began my healing journey, it's I can easily see all the red and I'm okay, I need to get rid of these things. I know this is bad. I know this is toxic. I know this is from my childhood. That's easy. Okay, let's stop doing that. Let's stop doing that. It was easy at first. It's kind of like when you're fat and you first start losing weight and it's easy at first to like get off the first pounds. And at first it was fast and somewhat easy because I knew like, okay, that's something I need to let go. And then it gets harder and harder the more you chip off. Like if you're imagining a rock that, you know, we chip off to make statues, or chisel to make statues, it gets harder the closer you get to the actual statue form. And so the more I kept healing, the more resistance there was with letting traits and things go and patterns go, because I'm like, that's okay, I know that that's wrong, but that's hard to let go. So I got to a point where I was like, I know these are things I need to let go, but it's hard. So I'm actively trying to let these things go, even though it's difficult, trying to work through things, even though it's difficult. But now I'm at a place where I feel like I'm still trying to work through things I know are difficult to let go but are wrong. Now I've hit a wall where, and I think this is something that happens a lot more than we talk about with people that have borderline personality disorder, is knowing what's right and wrong. When you get to a point of healing where it's like, now I'm at a point where I've let a lot of the bad stuff go. These last couple traits, are they bad or are they just standards that other people don't like? Is this trait or this thing actually something wrong with me, or the people around me have the wrong perspective? And that, I think, is something BPDs struggle with in general, because there's a constant identity crisis when you have BPD. There's a constant questioning in your head of, am I right or am I wrong? Are they right or are they wrong? And at first it's easy to know, okay, that's toxic, that's me, okay? But then you kind of get to this point where it's like, you have a standard or you think a certain way about something, and it's met with resistance by people in your life, and you don't know if it's met with resistance because you just have a hard standard, or because you're being crazy, or because you are seeing it wrong. Something's wrong with you. You need to grow. And that identity crisis is so prevalent in my life and a constant struggle. And yeah, I guess it's just really hard to figure out what I want to keep and what's actually good and part of me and a standard I have, and what's stuff that still needs to be worked through.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That is something that I think should be explored further. And overall, the aspect of BPD and having that identity crisis and having the standard that you have for yourself and what other people put on you, I think is extreme. And I think all of us can relate to that, BPD or not.
Yeah.
Like, society constantly puts us in a state of stress with the standards that they put on us. And we are struggling to find our own identity within ourselves.
And we're constantly wondering if society's right or wrong.
Yes, of course. And I think lowering, and I know as a podcast, we're trying to break down the social stigmas and what they put on us and as a whole, but sometimes it's hard. That
can get hard though, because when you decide to go full force at breaking societal stigmas, and I'm going to be different and I'm not going to leave my standards up to what society does, you are met with this, well then what are you going to do? Sometimes I feel like, and maybe this is, I don't know if this is a BPD experience or regular, but I often imagine myself talking to myself, kind of like talking in the mirror, but I don't imagine a mirror. I literally just imagine talking to myself. And I feel like I run into her like face first, and she's like, what are you going to do now? Like, you told yourself that society's wrong. You told yourself religion's wrong. You told yourself your family's wrong. You told yourself your friends are wrong. So what are you going to do now? Like, are you right and everyone else is wrong? Like, this is like the other me, like, talking to her.
Like an inner monologue.
Yeah, like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? And, like, it gets to this point where you have to decide with your own discretion, what's good and wrong, good or bad, and what's right and wrong. And that can get hard because sometimes I feel so justified about something and I'm like, this is what I think, this is my opinion of this, and it's met with so much resistance and everyone disagrees, or majority of society disagrees. But I don't think that's a reason to feel like you're wrong, because there's so many times in history where somebody was the only one that thought that, and they weren't the crazy ones.
Society wanted them to be the crazy ones.
Yeah, it's just a real constant struggle. Yeah. I think that maybe like everyone goes through, but
the problem is, it's not that everybody goes through it, it's who's going to recognize that it's a problem.
More recent history, I feel like a few years ago, maybe around like 2016, 2017, 18-ish, I don't really know, but there was kind of this like argument happening on the internet and on socials of like, girls are insecure if you don't like that your boyfriend watches porn, or if you don't like that your boyfriend likes pictures of naked girls, or if you don't like that your boyfriend's following girls, like all of those things make you an insecure girlfriend. And when this topic first hit TikTok and first hit Instagram and whatever socials it hit, the vast majority was, you're insecure if you think those things. You're an insecure girlfriend if you're not cool with porn, if you're not cool with other naked girls, blah, blah, blah. And now I feel like in 2024, it's kind of switched. I feel like it's still a pretty divided argument, but now I see more and more girls making posts of, you're not insecure if you think this. This is a standard. This is respect. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't see that at first. When that topic first hit the internet, it was all, oh my God, girls are insecure if they do that. Mm-hmm. Everyone agreed. All the comments agreed. And now it's not really like that. It's pretty split.
Yeah, I actually do want to like touch base on that too, because I feel back then, in particular, when that first surfaced, I was definitely on the side of the fact that I always pointed the finger at the girl of being insecure. Mm-hmm. And nothing I could do was the problem because I was the man. Like I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like I was young, I was naive. But when you really start to grow up and you really start to get in a growth mindset and you open up vulnerability in your feelings and you touch base on insecurity and security, you start to realize that I was the man that was creating the problems, making those girls insecure. I set the principle that they would be insecure if they went through my phone, because they were already, or not that they were getting insecure by looking through my phone, but I was generating the insecurities by setting a standard that it was okay for me to look at other girls that maybe might have been prettier or more beautiful. And I just feel like that sets like a really bad, like a detrimental factor on a relationship or on a woman's mind, because we are very comparative. We live in a society that is on the foundation of technology and social media and constantly comparing ourselves to other people on the internet. And I think that generates a lot of insecurities. And I totally flipped my mindset and realized that the women are not just born insecure.
Yeah.
We've put these insecurities on the women in society.
It kind of relates, it's kind of the same concept as what we talked about in the teen torture episode. The kids aren't the problem. What made the kid that way?
Yeah.
You know? This, I think, has actually been discussed more and more in recent years, but yeah, how women's reactions are made to be seen as the initial offense, when the initial offense was the man.
Yeah.
And now the woman's reaction is like seen as
crazy,
unjust and yeah, crazy, like when they kind of set her up to feel insecure or whatever it is. It's gaslighting. I know you hate that word, but it's gaslighting. And
no, you're right, it is.
And
it's not that I hate the word, it's more the fact that I just feel like it's overused, but we do live in a time where we
the
needed that
behavior
word.
is
It
overused.
is.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the problem.
So the term being
we're
overused.
we're blaming the reaction
Yes.
of us saying, "Oh my God, that's crazy." I just had like an epiphany. We literally got mad at women for using the word gaslight too much, but we say it too much because we're saying what you guys are doing.
We overlook the action.
So instead of being mad that there's so many people gaslighting women, we're mad that women are talking about it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And now I'm realizing that more and more that it's not the word, it's the actions behind the word.
I'm kind of glad the word gaslight is such an annoying word because it fits. Like, it's such an annoying action, so it deserves an annoying word, you know? Like, I'm glad that it annoys the men.
Well, yeah. We probably needed it. I mean, we've been doing stuff like that for forever.
Yeah.
But it works. So you were saying earlier that with BPD that a lot of other people kind of break you down as a person. Like your parents kind of told you were wrong or you were in the wrong. Your friends kind of said you were wrong or were in the wrong, or society was also doing that to you, and you kind of just had to figure out who you were as a person. So can you just touch base on a little bit about that?
Like how I do that.
Yeah, like how you really find it within yourself to really push through.
I feel like I still am actively figuring out what I want to keep and what I want to do away with. But I think it really just does come down to your choice. And I know that sounds simpler than people might be expecting, but at least as somebody with BPD and the way I see the world is like this. It's, to me, nothing has greater or lesser value than the next thing. No person has greater or lesser value than life itself, or the rock outside, or the tree outside, or anything. I feel like everything is equally valuable. You know, I mean, not so much like man-made stuff like this, but the universe. And I just feel like everything's valuable, and keeping that in mind, I feel like every person is valuable regardless of status, education, degrees, jobs, finances, any of those things. I don't think it makes, just because you have degrees or you're a doctor, you have a doctorate, or you're well off in life, I don't think that makes you smarter than the 14-year-old in the classroom who skips school all the time because life is hard at home. The said 14-year-old's interpretation of life is just as important as the 50-year-old who's very well off with tons of businesses and degrees. I don't think either of them have a more educated opinion or perspective on life. I think the 14-year-old's guess about why existence is just as good as the next person's guess, like the 50-year-old's. My point is, none of us know the truth. None of us, as much as some would like to think this is true, none of us have a book to life. None of us have a guide to what the truth is, to what's really going on in space and what it really means and why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing and what's wrong and right? So the 14-year-old's interpretation of life and perspective of life to me means just as much as somebody that's well experienced and well off in life, because who even knows that the success that said 50-year-old has is what we're supposed to be doing here. You know,
They just went through they just did well in a man-made system.
they succeeded in capitalism. That's what they did. They are no closer to cracking the code on existence and knowing what's right and wrong, and if that's really the purpose of life.
Yep.
So to answer your question, when I go forward outside of that identity crisis that I often have, and just finally am like, okay, what am I going to do? Is this wrong or right? It really just comes down to your choice. Your perspective and your conscience and your standard and your morale, your compass, your moral compass is no better or lesser than the next person, regardless of where you're at in life or what status you have or how old you are or if you're a man or a woman. So it really just comes down to choice. And I know that's probably a simpler answer and not the answer that a lot of people want to hear, but it literally just comes down to what you think. You have to decide, am I going to let, just because this is being met with resistance, am I going to change my mind, or is this really what I think? And if it's really what you think, stick with it. Oftentimes, like, we're met with resistance on things because we're right.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't want to face that. To piggyback on how everything's your choice, I also want to say, keeping in mind how I view life and how none of us know the answer and nobody knows the purpose of this, and we're all kind of just doing what we want and what we think is the purpose of life and what we think we're supposed to do with life on Earth. Life is literally what you create it to be. When I talked about building your life in previous episodes, it sounds so simple, but it really is the code that's cracked. And yes, there's things that are out of our control. There's things that you can't change or that you have to kind of adapt to or live by. But there's no rule book. There's no guide. There's no purpose meter. There's none of that. So you have to decide why you think we're on a floating rock in space and why we're here and what you're going to do with that.
Our existential purpose.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm referring to. I just think nobody knows that answer.
No.
So society views people like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, or NFL football teams that are doing very well, or bands that are doing very well, or even businessmen and lawyers and stuff that are doing very well. That's all viewed as like they made it. They're successful. And that's society's impression and outlook of what the purpose to life is. And I just don't agree with that.
No,
I
don't
don't
either.
think that's the whole purpose to life, is
No.
to get the most money and achieve the most awards. I just don't. As admirable as those things are, and I think there's another aspect to it, like artistry, when it comes to like music and stuff like that I appreciate and is literally my passion, which is what I'm doing. Like, I can respect all that stuff, but I don't think society has the roadmap to why life is here, you know?
Yeah.
So I just think it comes down to your own choice.
And what we lit in. And I remember you saying that in past episodes as well, that if when you do stop distracting yourself and you do stop to realize a lot of different things, you let in a lot of negative energy and a lot of negative emotion because you're not creating the life you want. You're stopping to realize what society wants you to.
You're stopping to listen to the mutters.
Yeah. You're like, am I successful? Am I in the position I want to be in life? Because you're looking on social media, you're seeing people travel all over the world 24/7. You're seeing people live what you think is your dream. But in reality, you're having what you would probably call an identity crisis. You're putting your identity in those people because you think that they're living their life. I'm stuck at home thinking about what I can be doing differently or where I went wrong, instead of just changing it, instead of taking the necessary steps to become a better person overall, or to pursue your dream. Take that leap of faith, take that next step, take that class, take that. I know I had to do this for the podcast. I struggle immensely with talking and mumbling and pronunciation, and I was terrified at first. But I knew that it was something that I was passionate about. I knew I wanted to change the world. I just didn't know how to do it. And this podcast really gave me the push. It gave me the motivation to send a message to people that just I know Nike says it, but just do it. Like just be what you want and the hero of your story, because we don't have much time here. You're right. We do have a lot of these existential questions that what is our purpose? And we all look at videos, we all listen to leaders and people with power tell us what we want to hear and what they think purpose is. But that's not our view of purpose.
Yeah.
I think it's defined by your inner beauty. It's defined by yourself. We decide what our purpose is.
Yeah.
And when you really dial back and you really hone in on what our purpose is, and you take the time to find your identity, you find who you are as a person, it's almost freeing, and you feel like you're almost putting like a cape on your back, like you're Superman now, because
Your own
you get
Superman.
yeah, exactly. You get to live life in a different perspective, because now you realize that we don't have much time on this earth. We only get, if nothing happens, if something doesn't happen to us on the road, or some type of abrupt death happens, we have 100 years, and that's not a long time. It's a blink of an eye compared to how long
Like,
this earth
if
has been
we're
around.
lucky,
Yeah,
we have 100 years.
we're lucky. Yes, exactly. So if you really dial back and you tune into what that actually means, you really need to cherish every day, and you really need to just take it. And I really wanted to come on this pod because neither of us are in the quote unquote best headspace, or what society says is a positive day. But we came on here, we didn't have the best mindset, but this is our passion. This is what we love, and I could almost cry, because we get to do this, and we took this step as a couple,
and we created it.
and we generated it.
Yeah. Nothing's gonna just happen on its own. We had to build this and start it and do everything to create this podcast world. And that's just an example of how you have to create your life. Kind of the way, I'm so sorry I talk about this person so much, but kind of the way that Taylor Swift has created a whole universe with just her music. And if you know, like, she really has created a whole colorful world, a whole new universe by her music, just by her storytelling. And that's just an example of, like, you have to create your life. Like, especially if you don't really like the one society has set up. If you want to just be a part of what society has set up, then, like, you can do that. But if you don't, I don't really know how to end that, but you really do have to create your own world and create your own life.
I really hope our listeners can break out of that, what society wants for them.
Yeah.
Because I think when you do that, I know just from my family alone, and I love my family immensely, but they put a standard on who I should be as a person. And
probably because they just want the best for you, but it can affect you badly.
But I was also struggling with who I am as a person, and it was hard for me to really find my passion, because I was so blinded with, I had to get a degree, I had to go to school, I had to,
with listening to what they were telling you needed to suffice to their standards.
which are perfectly fine. Like, I think I'm an advocate for education, advocate for knowledge, and yeah, like, it was really hard for me to find my own identity when everybody was in my ear telling me on who I should be and who I had to be, and I didn't get to really take the time to be like, who is Dom? Who am
Because
I as
everyone's
a
just
person?
telling you what you should do,
Yeah,
and you're actively trying to figure out who you are.
yeah, and there's a huge precedent when on being an 18-year-old graduating high school. You think the world is gonna be yours for the taking, and you get out there and you have no clue
Yeah.
what the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
And I think I took that in it almost put me into depression, and I was constantly going back home. Even though I moved away from home for college, I was constantly coming back home. I felt like I wasn't ready, and I think everybody's timeline is different. So why do we have such a huge leap from 18 to 19 years old, from 17 to 18 years old, on becoming what quote unquote adult?
Yeah.
Is you can't define adult with a number. We adult at different stages of our lives, and taking that step in our mentality and understanding our mental health, we don't get to do that at 18 years old. We barely know who we are. We haven't left the grasp in like I said, like, people talking in your ear, like your family talking in your ear. We haven't left
Also,
that.
school's talking in your ear, though.
Yeah.
Think about the immense pressure that high school puts on you. They start at, like, 8th grade, and freshman year, they're like, what do you want to do for a career? Decide now.
Yep.
Because you should know by the time you're a senior.
It's a lot of pressure.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think that pressure alone just people telling me, hey, you need to decide what to do for a career by this time, that alone made me procrastinate deciding my career, because there was a pressure on me. See, I don't think I do well under pressure, because when I'm pressured to like get something done by a certain time, it makes me not want to do it. And
I'm the same way. That's why I procrastinate.
yeah, and I think that's why it took so long to figure out what my passion was, because our whole grade school lives, everyone's down your throat telling you how you need to decide what your career is, and you're taking freaking career matching tests in 7th grade when your fucking frontal lobe hasn't even developed. And it's like, that's crazy. I could spend a whole episode, Easter egg, I could spend a whole episode on how high school just sets you up for failure.
Yeah.
School
Absolutely.
in general sets you up for failure. Anyway, that's not what this episode's about.
That's not what this episode's about. Yeah.
I just wanted to emphasize that it's not just our families that put us in these molds and expecting stuff, but it's the whole fucking world.
It's the whole world, yeah. Society as a whole.
Yeah.
And having those guardrails at home, and when those guardrails lift and you take that next step in your journey to becoming what we like to say an adult, and getting into college and getting your own apartment or living on campus, I used to think and look at a lot of people that knew what they wanted to do, had their degree ready to go. I used to be...
Yeah, some of my best friends were co-valedictorians and salutatorians.
Yeah.
And they just, like, had their whole life figured
Yeah,
out.
like, I think that is very admirable, and I think it's beautiful, and that's their journey. But I used to really have a negative viewpoint of myself, because I'm like, they have their shit figured out. Why don't I have mine? And I did this for years, where I went back and forth. I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. No, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm just jumping it. This is what I want to do. No, that's not actually what I want to do. I just think I have this pressure that I need to pick something now.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy, because how are you supposed to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life when you don't even know who you are? I can't imagine if I picked my career at 18. I feel like I've lived 5 lifetimes since I was 18. Like, I would have picked a different career 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was a different person every year, and I feel like I'm just in this last year or two, I really started figuring out who I was. And now that's after figuring out more of who I was, that's when it became more apparent to me what my passion was and what I wanted to do with my life. So maybe instead of like 12 years of, hey, figure out what you want to do for a career, it should be like, mental health is important, figure out who you are, so that maybe by the time you're 20 years old, you might know what you want to do.
Yeah. I really wish I took a couple of years off and just like traveled the world. I think that's one of the best things you could do for yourself, is to really open your mind and really find who you are as a person, like you said.
I'm glad I didn't go immediately to college. Yeah.
I guess not one of my regrets, but I wish I took some time off. I immediately went into college thinking I had everything figured out, but I was just living a lie. Like, I was just living I picked a major that would have brought in a lot of money, that took way more discipline and way more self-motivation than I definitely had at 18 years old. And it was just unrealistic.
Yeah. Just the whole concept of choosing a career at 18 is unrealistic. There's so many things you don't know about life before you leave high school that would affect that decision.
And there's so many pressures that are on you as well, that how can you make a justified decision with all that pressure on you? And I think you can even attest to this, when you do lift up all that pressure, you find who you are as a person. Like you said, you found your passion when a lot of different things weren't affecting you.
When I, took off those pressures of expectations from my family or people around me or people at school, or when I like stopped caring what people thought and I solely started focusing on who do I want to be, I found my passion almost immediately, because I was like, I should probably stop pretending that I don't want to be in the creative field, because for years, like, I was raised in church and I did a lot of stuff in church where I was on like ministry teams and worship teams, stuff like that. So I've done acting, dancing, singing, performing. I know what it's like to be on the stage, just in church and stuff. And like, we would travel in ministry and like do it in different states and stuff like that. I always knew, like, from a young age that I felt passionate about music and performance and dance, and just artistic expression in general made me very excited and made me very passionate. But I always didn't take it seriously, because I was like, I'm not gonna be a musician for my career. Like, what? And then what am I gonna do? Like, be a minister for my career? You know what I'm saying? I was constantly thinking, like, in church, like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna be a worship leader, or like, you know, will I speak? Because I was like, I like speaking, so am I gonna be a pastor? But that's not acceptable because I'm a woman. You know what I'm saying? So when I left the church and decided to start focusing on who I was and what I wanted, it was pretty immediate that I was like, I can probably stop denying now that I'm an artist. Like, stop pretending that this isn't what I want to spend my life doing. And I think a month or two after I kind of decided that was what I wanted to do, and we started becoming friends and we were like hanging out, I remember telling you I would rather spend the rest of my life chasing this passion and maybe never make it than spend my life doing something I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
I would rather bring my poetry and my sewing and my music to my grave, even if it never takes off. And that's another thing I wanted to say earlier. We kind of like got sidetracked, but I wanted to say earlier, we do not have to rate success by people's response to what we're doing. Do we really think a multi-talented musician, awesome artist isn't successful just because they don't have a large fan base? Or are they still just as awesome and talented and fully in alignment with their passion and what they're supposed to be doing? You know, I think we rate people's response to our performances, to what we're doing, as like a meter of success. We'll know if this podcast is good based on response.
Yep.
Like, no.
So
you know what I'm saying?
we're raised on a reward system.
Yeah. But based off of society's responses. And I think we just need to cut that shit out.
Yeah,
that is no way to raise success. Like, Pablo Picasso? That died before his art took off?
Vincent Van Gogh.
Vincent Van Gogh, prime example. I know, like, everybody talks about this, but he was an amazing artist that his art didn't take off till after he died, and how he was pretty old when he died. Do you know how old he was?
No idea.
Alexa, how old was Vincent Van Gogh when he died?
Vincent Van Gogh died at 37 years old.
Oh, he was kind of young.
Oh, he was really young.
Valdoise, France. His cause of death was suicide.
Oh, he was 37?
Holy shit.
Damn.
Jesus Christ.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. 37, that's so young.
I didn't know he took his own life.
I didn't know either. Oh.
Wow. That makes my point even heavier.
Yeah.
He took his own life at 37. He thought he was poor and unsuccessful, and that his art was unsuccessful and not good, and he thought he was a failure. And his art didn't even get famous till after he passed away, let alone took his own life. That's such a good example of, do not base your success and your value, more importantly, based on the response of society and the response of people around you. Just because you don't get approval and people don't like your work as much as you thought they would, or how much, you know, you're not getting the attention or the response that you wanted, that does not change the value of your work, and it does not change the value of yourself. Vincent Van Gogh was an incredible artist, and he didn't even know it because he believed society.
Yeah.
I'm crying.
I know.
That's crazy.
That's fucking crazy.
That just made that so much deeper for me.
Yeah, because don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your passions based on what other people tell you.
Just a moment of silence for all the people that wasted their lives on society's opinions.
Yeah. And gave up on their dreams too early.
And so many of them. And my mind also goes to women that were used to be put in insane asylums back in the day, just like for the smallest of reasons. And their lives were completely changed and destroyed, and the trajectory of them absolutely changed because they got put in an insane asylum for something stupid. So it's just like, our history is so bad, and it makes me like sick. It makes me shudder at just not just America, but just like world history in general. It's so sickening. Just the way we treated people and the way we had everyone in such a chokehold of like, society has to approve, or you have to be like that. Like, nobody can be different. Everyone has to do this or do that. And if you don't do that, you're weird, or if you don't do that, you're crazy. Or I just can't believe the chokehold, the absolute psychological chokehold that we had society in. Something I really wanted to hit was the exhaustion that comes with working through difficult traumas and processing and unpacking things. When I said I was exhausted at the beginning of the episode, I didn't necessarily mean it's because I have too much going on. I think I have a pretty structured schedule and I know my limits, and it's not that I overwhelm myself with too many tasks. It's that I give myself a normal amount of tasks and then I have BPD. You know what I'm saying? And then that makes it harder, right? Because I wake up and I'm like, I don't even want to be alive today. I literally just want to sleep all day. And then I will like sleep half the day. And then at 5 or 4, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't waste my existence. And then I finally get up and then I feel shitty that I slept all day. So it's like this cycle of like constantly battling your own self. And not only that, but we have been, as a couple, really been like knee deep in elbow grease when it comes to our mental health lately. And we're actively dealing with stuff every day and working through something and having conversations about how we feel because of childhood traumas or this or that. And it's exhausting. I think the healing alone is tiring, and it takes a lot of mental energy and effort to heal, to like realize something, to process something, to unpack something and figure out that something in your childhood or something that happened to you wasn't what you thought it was, or realizing people aren't who you thought they were, or realizing this or that. Those things take energy from your mental so immensely. And I feel like you and I, as individuals and as a couple, have been really attacking problems in our life and attempting to just grow and heal past our traumas and past bad patterns and stuff. And that is just exhausting.
It is.
You've been taking more naps than usual, and you're constantly tired because you're like constantly every day you're unpacking more trauma and you're unpacking more emotional turmoil. We both are, and so we're just like exhausted all the time.
Yeah, and that was beautifully said. You said that perfectly, absolutely. And yes, it is exhausting, and I didn't realize why I was so tired all the time, and it's because of how tiring it is to unpack trauma and really sort through it. We don't give ourselves credit enough for growing as people, and it's not easy, and it's not something that's going to be overnight. It's not something that's going to happen. It's going to happen with time. And it yeah, you just said it perfectly. It's exhausting, and I agree.
It might not seem like it. That's why appearances and reality are important to remember. Like, they're two different things, because it might not seem like we're quote unquote struggling mentally or working through things, but we are. Like, every day, I would go as far to say we're kind of in the thick of it right now. I feel like we both kind of just opened our eyes to like several things in our own individual lives that are hard for us to process, and it's a lot. And I feel like therapeutically and just like spiritually and mentally, we're really like in the thick of it right now, like working out a lot of old patterns, old behaviors, childhood, blah blah blah, etc. Of just working things out and
trying to grow as people.
Yeah, and just basically going to therapy with ourselves every day. Yeah. Not actively going to a different therapist, but just going to therapy every day.
Yeah.
In our own heads and our own minds, because we're constantly trying to grow and deal with these things because we don't want them to affect us anymore.
And I love what you said earlier with, just because we're going through something doesn't mean we're down here. we're going through something to become up here. We're going through
Yeah.
something to be stronger. It's almost like you're putting a shell on yourself because you're like in defensive mode, that you realize that something made you vulnerable, something that made you feel weak. But once you break that and break the mold, you're so much stronger because of it. You're a new
Yeah.
person and you feel it too. I know I wake up and I'm like, I feel lighter. I feel like a totally different person. I
Yeah.
take on a new perspective of the world, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. I'm grateful we're doing it together.
Yes. Yeah. It's a
Thank you
beautiful
for being
thing.
here for me.
Of course. Thank you for being here for me.
And yeah, I guess we wanted to be open with the gems about how much we really have been battling recently. Like, we really are in the thick of it. Like, actively, we're right there with you guys, like working through things, and still don't know all the answers, and still trying to figure out our identities fully and all those things.
Absolutely.
Well, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for staying this long, for working through things with us, our emotions, our mental health. We love that you're here alongside us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. Let us know what you think. Give us your feedback. We have the email up, comment, DM us, whatever you need to do, but give us some feedback. Thank you guys for listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, all your feedback will be muchly appreciated. And we appreciate you here as a whole. And yeah, I just want to like also add that next week we are going to be talking about how high school has failed us as a society. And
Be
yeah,
sure to tune in.
definitely be sure to tune in. And we're definitely going to be giving a lot of insights in that episode for sure.
I think we just realized at the end of the episode, there's a lot to say about school. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
tune in next week to get the full episode.
Absolutely. We love you, Gems.
Mwah.